for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It is July 11th, 2023. And let's do this. Tonight's going to be a great show. And our guest is Peter Langevin. And help support the show. We are live 4 nights a week. We do the news live 4 days a week earlier in the day. Help support all of our hard work and our team here by getting your Fade to Black t-shirts. You can get your t-shirts 2 ways. One, you can just go to the website and order a shirt. It's free shipping. It ships the next day. Next day, free shipping. Or you can get a Game Changer membership. Game Changer membership. We have 2,000 archive shows, all of them commercial free. You get an email to me, a private email. You get all access to the website and all of that. And you get a t-shirt. And all of the t-shirts are autographed. So get your t-shirts today. The links are below. Tonight, our guest. Now, this is what we're going to be doing tonight. We are going to share Michael's personal journey through Peru. I will be in Peru in a couple of months, and what he has learned from the secret teachings and the ancient traditions of the Incas. Very excited about this, and good prep for me because I'm going to spend not 1, not 2, but 3 weeks in Peru. And now he is the co-publisher, co-editor of the Echo World magazine, the alternative monthly voice in the South. He is also the co-owner and co-operator of LangevinAxelsson Marketing Company. He is a visionary. He's an entrepreneur who befriends shamans, musicians, holy men, and gifted psychics. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Peter Langevin. Michael, good evening, young man. How are you? And how's the South?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. How are you?
You look great. That's all that matters.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The South is wonderful. I love New Orleans.
Before we get to my comment that I was going to make, let's get the first time guest disclaimer out of the way, Michael, which is next time you're on the show, you don't get it, but you get it now because it's the first time you're on with us. And it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. There you go. Except, ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember, you and I are the same age, so do you remember back on Saturday Night Live, the Billy Crystal, when he did Fernando Lamas, right, his imitation? It's better to look good than to feel good. and as I have grown older, truer words have never been spoken. So there you go. Welcome to the program. And I am headed to Peru.
This is your first time?
My first time.
Oh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
There is, see, here, I remember the first episode of Ancient Aliens, the first episode, it comes on, and they did Puma Punku and, the H blocks. And that's back when Ancient Aliens, I think the first 3 episodes or something were 2 hours. I watched that episode over and over again. And a couple of weeks later, I meet Giorgio. This is, I don't know, 2008, I think, 2009, whenever the series started. And I went straight at him about the H blocks and was asking questions and could not wait. I mean, the Nazca lines and everything else, and the Incas and the history. It's the entire package. But
Tiwanaku and Puka Puka are just, they're otherworldly. I mean, I think they're older than almost anything down there.
And we'll circle back to Pumo Punku, but here's the thing for me that I can't wrap my head around. There's no trees, right?
The Altiplano. You can't grow trees, and yet they supported a huge population.
What's your theory on that? How did they pull that off?
They've actually, a lot of the archaeologists have done all sorts of research. Was the climate different? Hard to say, but there supposedly were quite a water system off Lake Titicaca that actually allowed them to grow. And with all the terraces that later the Incas did, but had come throughout the early history of the region, the people learned how to bring the heat to different levels of the earth so that they could actually affect in the Arequipa Canyon, they had different crops growing at each level of the canyons based on how they had the rocks organized in the terraces, and the terraces go on for miles.
Right.
And how close these ancient cities were to Lake Titicaca back when is also a big area of debate, because many ruins and treasures have been found under Lake Titicaca itself. So what level of disaster or flood occurred? I mean, there's huge theories that they were actually coastal cities of Lemur. And when everything happened, they were raised up to the height of the Andes. Kind of far-fetched, but the stonework, when you see that stonework, and you feel it, you can feel that there's something otherworldly about it. You can stand in Tiwanaku, they have this rock kind of sculpture, and you whisper on one side, and it's the length of a football field. It sounds like you're yelling on the other side.
Here's so many. We could stay on. We could just stay.
I could talk for weeks about the wonders of that region. I tell you.
I know. And you know what's funny? Pumo Punku is just a stone's throw away, right? And you can walk.
You can walk right there. I mean, they're almost the same. It's almost like, I think Tiwanaku was built on the ruins of Punko Punko. I think it's
I think, again, a point of debate, which was first, but I'm kind of feeling that Pumo Punku.
When you're there, you really get the feeling that it goes back further. The stonework in Tiwanaku is exquisite, but this stonework in Punko Punko, it's like so exact, and it's cut so square that you just can't fathom it.
No, you can't. And they replicated, those H blocks are replicated without a written language. Well, it depends on,
what written is. We can talk about the Kapus later.
Right. But no paper to write on, no engineering, no computers, apparently. But yet everything was replicated by design perfectly. And some of the dating ideas, astronomically, push Pumo Punku back to 15,000 years old.
Yeah,
and you have to scratch your heads. How did that happen at that altitude? And if you just go with historians and you go with anthropologists and orthodox academia, Pumo Punku doesn't make any sense, does it?
You can't. It's a huge oopot that they can't deny. I mean, right there at Tiwanaku, the Gate of the Sun has a perfect calendar that has the 12 months of the year, has some of the solar eclipses, and even has an elephant on it. An elephant? What was going on there? If you go to the wall of the heads in Tiwanaku, they look like faces of all races, and as Van Doniken pointed out, otherworldly aliens.
Yeah, that one definitely looks like an alien. It does. It looks like a gray. It looks like your classic gray. But you raise a really good point. It's every culture on the earth is represented on that wall.
How did they know that?
Way before allegedly there were boats, right? Let alone a transoceanic culture. And so let's talk about that for a second, because when the Spanish, let's just say Europeans, okay, we'll just use that. Europeans show up and start to meet the local culture. And they're like, what's going on? Who built this? What's going on? Well, I don't know. The gods built it. And the Spanish were just as blown away as we are with what was happening in that part of Peru. What's the takeaway there, and what was the influence on the local
depending
culture?
on who you talk to, of course, but the when they say the gods, that there is a boundless, but was Tiwanaku and Sacsayhuaman crossroads for interdimensional beings? They found the skulls right out of Indiana Jones. Thereabouts, were they from another planet? Were they from another dimension? Was their knowledge coming in? Did they help build these things and then leave them to the Inca to carry on? Who's to say, unless we have a time machine, what really happened?
What's your theory?
I think that. I actually think, and my theories go pretty far out, but I spent some time studying the early literature that was translated by the Spanish monks and from the locals, and there's so many innuendos and so many subtleties in that. And when they speak of these early rocks, and the early stonework, which is so much better than what the Incas did later, they talk about the fact that it was beings before them that left. I think it was either extraterrestrial. I mean, when you see the Nazca lines, the tourist guides will still tell you that they took llama skins and sewed them together and blew them up as hot air balloons, and that's how they got to see them, because you can't make out the designs unless you're up in the air in a plane. Maybe someone was coming in from someplace other than a llama skin and hot air balloon. It definitely. They've just found ruins in the north of Peru that actually, I mean, they're in ruins, but they believe they're 30,000 years old.
I just read that, and one of the things I do the news every day, and my version of the news isn't CNN Fox, right? But in the world of archaeology, and my producer that does the news for me, Renee, she's absolutely amazing. She knows where my head is, and she's out there, right at the front of science and technology and archaeology, and the amazing thing, Michael, is the dates of everything. It doesn't matter where, right? If it's China, Israel, North America, South Central Africa, it doesn't matter. The dates are getting pushed back.
We're finding more and more, and the dating is so much better. And now we have LIDAR, the sonar from the air that can find ruins in the Amazon and in the deserts of Syria and Saudi Arabia. that are leading to all kinds of new discoveries.
The llama skin balloons.
Yeah, that's what they tell you.
All right. Yeah, I was recently in Egypt, right?
Uh-huh.
And we're not talking about Egypt tonight. But speaking of the tour guides and the llama skin balloons, right? Okay, so there is so much tourism there that there are employees, these tour guides that work for their antiquities division there, and I get that, right? And I'm listening, and we're going to these different sites, and I'm watching and listening to these tour guides, and they're all carrying the same book. Right? They are literally, and they're reading off of these pages, and it's this same dogma, right? And so I really started to pay attention. Our tour guides, including myself, I was a tour guide. We're fringe. We're okay with and we had 80 people in our group that were there to listen to real ideas and real theories. But I couldn't help but listen to word for word these tour guides and their BS. Now, I get it. It's their job, right? And they are trained. And I totally get it. And I'm sure that the same thing goes on at Tiwanaku, it goes on at Pumapunku, and it goes on at Nazca, it goes on at Cusco, where they are going to just read the official version.
Unless you luck out and get someone like yourself or someone who's there and was raised in the mountains and doesn't want to go by rote or by rule and knows more, that's what you're going to get.
I've talked to a lot of people about the tour guides around Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, and as soon as you start to raise questions, they shut it down. Sure. They won't even like entertain. No. They stay right there, and they don't go off of how are these holes drilled? How are these slots carved? How are these? They just did it. Okay.
They use sharp rock, harder rocks.
Yeah. They had really good chicken bones. Really.
But so many of the mysteries down there are that way. So many of the things. I mean, what really hit me, I think the first time I went down there was it was in the 70s, and what really hit me then was what I hadn't realized, and I think a lot of people don't, is before the Spanish came, there was a way of thinking, a way of living, a way of being that was totally unlike anything we can almost imagine. It was non-capitalistic. It was non-competitive. It was about being in harmony with the other people, with nature, about knowing different things, about seeing the future, about communicating with trees and doing ceremony in such a way that would actually bring about results for you and your family and village.
Right. And we've totally lost sight of that.
Totally.
I mean, we're totally disconnected. Instead, it's just two people talking on the internet like we are. You know what I mean? And
what you'll find when you go down there. I mean, it's true in a lot of the Latin American countries, but in Peru, people live from their heart. They really feel. And as you go to the marketplace 3 times, and the third time you ask somebody, what is that you're selling there, and how do you fix that? And they say, oh, where are you staying? And they'll come to you to where you're staying, help you cook it, and tell you stories until late in the night.
I've got so many invitations for dinner already lined up in Peru. Now, let me ask you. This may sound strange, but I'm very curious. When you look at the construction today at Tiwanaku, and you look at the boats, and you look at the colors, and you look at the construction, it feels Egyptian to me.
There definitely was communication. You know that they found coca leaves in Egyptian mummies. There was definitely communication. I mean, from what they've seen with LiDAR, there were ancient civilizations in the Amazon. It's just that they didn't build as many out of stone, so they've rotted away, as everything does in the Amazon.
Right.
But yes, there was, if not interdimensional and not interplanetary, there was intercontinental from Asia and from Africa into Latin America. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, if you didn't know that, if somebody didn't tell you that you were looking at pictures of a lake in Peru, and you were looking at the boats and the colors and the design and everything, you would think you were looking at the shores of the Nile River.
You really can very easily. You really can. And when you go out to the islands, you're in another world. The floating islands, you're in another world altogether.
What do you think? Another strange question, and then we'll move on. But I'm so excited about going. What do you think? What do you think is under Tiwanaku?
That's a good question. You know, so many tunnels exist in the Andes. The peoples before the Incas themselves. Cusco is riddled. I've actually been in some that you can get through if you know somebody through their sewer system that go from Sacsayhuaman to Cortacancha, the Temple of the Sun.
Right.
So I wouldn't be at all surprised if there are tunnels under Tiwanaku. There's the Peruvian government, I think, is under. I mean, I'm not a big conspiracy buff, but you can be real easily. Are under some kind of mandate not to do more exploration in Cusco, in Tiwanaku, just because it will blow the top off. Already things are being blown apart, theories of how the world evolved. But if there's proof where they have tunnels and artifacts that are 11,000 years old and are still intact, what that's going to prove and what that's going to write out of the history books is just going to be amazing.
Well, one of the things talking about the Nazca lines and the Nazca Desert in general, they have pyramids, and it's something that I don't know why the Peruvian government is not talking louder about what they actually have there, because tourism, it would be another Cairo. Right? It would. I think it would just.
They already get over 1 million people a year through Cusco going to Machu Picchu and Lake Titicaca. Right. They can only handle so many, and not that people aren't greedy and don't want more money, but there is the whole infrastructure that's just not there, And I do wonder how much pressure from universities and museums isn't being exerted in Latin America not to find a lot more.
They found another 250 Nazca lines.
They're all over. My mind just hiccuped. But the terraces and the lines and the ruins. I mean, you don't. I was. 5 years ago, I was in the Bolivian rainforest visiting some people with a wildlife preserve, and they said, "Oh, you're into ruins? Well, let's go down the river." And they went down the river, and there was like these carved big rocks on the side of the river that nobody was talking about.
Why? And is it because there's not enough archaeologists there?
I think so. The universities, I mean. You can get funding for the Mayan ruins easier and the Aztec ruins easier because they're closer to the States and it's easier for people. I mean, Peru gets fairly dicey, and during the Civil War it was extremely dicey. It's come out of that, but there's just not the enthusiasm for it.
The difference between, and you stated it so elegantly, right? And you can see this around the world with different cultures where they came in. It doesn't matter if it's Rome or Greece or Egypt or China, where you see the older construction. You can see it, and the massive stonework, the precision stonework, the old stonework, and then and like in Cusco, and all over Peru, you see the Inca version, then you see the Spanish version, right on top of that, where it's getting worse and worse and worse. Let's it's what is it that the ancients knew?
They knew how to build. One of my favorite stories is I was talking to a very old grandmother in the Andes Mountains when I was putting my book together, and I asked her, how did they move these rocks? Because I mean, some of them are bigger than a building. They're huge, and you can't put a knife in between them and the rock next to them. Never mind a piece of paper. And she said, well, it's simple. They just sang them there. What kind of technology did they have that they could do that? And one of my favorite stories about the Temple of the Sun kind of concept in Cusco is it's built on top of the Inca and pre-Inca ruins. And when there's earthquakes, the European building always falls down. But the foundation has been rebuilt on because they had this knowledge of how to build with what was coming and how to be in harmony with. It's that harmony I was speaking about that the Inca people still had and the pre-Inca people had in spades.
We're going to talk about shamans and experiences, and I can't wait to hear your take on that. And believe me, I have a very open mind, and we're going to get to that. But when you look at especially the walls in Cusco, you know that it's one of the best representations. It looks to me, and this is how my mind works. It looks to me that stone was as soft as clay,
right?
And they just
puttied them together,
right? Am I crazy to think?
No. When you feel them, when you stand there and hold them, or feel against them, it's like, how could they have moved these? Never mind, put them together seamlessly in a way that they get their connection gets stronger during earthquakes. It's technology that we no longer have.
Were they heating the stones? Some of them are 8 sides, and so you have 8, 10 sides intricate, but then the other stone
finally connected and seamless.
Right.
No, I mean I've read a lot of the theories, and they're sort of like the llama air balloons. The singing is really the only one that's made any sense to me. That they had some kind of technology that we can't even conceive of, that they could move these stones up the mountains and put them together seamlessly like that.
Now,
we form them.
Yeah, well, I've seen a couple of videos. So from the walls of Cusco, right? And the camera pans out, and the narrator says the quarry was 40 miles that way, right? But what you see between where he is pointing and where they are standing are rolling hills. It's not flat. You know, it's not like right. They were they
didn't push him over logs rolling on the ground. I'm sorry. Yeah. I can't buy that.
And
llamas, if you put 71 pounds on a llama's back, it sits down. It will only take 70 pounds in weight. They're a very smart animal. They're very happy to take 69 pounds or less up and down the mountains. So they didn't carry the rocks.
I just read, I think this was yesterday, in Oregon, right? You ready? In a cave, 18,000 years old. Human occupation, 18,000 years old. But that wasn't the crazy part. You know what they found in the cave? Camel teeth.
Now, according to all the studies,
just think about what I just said.
According to all the studies, llamas and vicuñas and alpacas were the first cameloids in the Americas in Tiwanaku. How did camel teeth get in Oregon back then?
18,000 years ago.
18,000 years ago. We're coming to a place in history where we're going to have to rewrite our whole belief in history and what happened and what existed before, because our theory is no longer holding up.
Oh, check this out. I've got to post this for you. Hold on. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here it is. Maybe they use llama hot air balloons to carry the stones.
There you go. That must have been
it. Llama skin balloons.
Yeah, that's how you can't explain the Nazca lines unless the people who built them were able to see them from high in the air. How did they get high in the air?
When I was a kid, like I said, you and I are the same age. So 1970, 71, Chariots of the Gods comes out. And my mom had already given me the book. And so I was like 8 years old at the time, 9 years old. But the TV commercial that would come on for Chariots of the Gods was mind-blowing, because Von Daniken, had the airplane going over the Nazca lines. Now, I was old enough at the time, 9 years old, to go, well, that's a bunch of BS. How many thousand? How old are they? And how were these? It doesn't make any sense. When you first went to Nazca, and you've obviously got background by the time you went there, but when you're standing on the desert floor looking at the lines, can you make sense of anything?
They have one kind of plateau carved out that you can kind of make out some of them, but no.
It's just lines in the desert, right?
That's it. Yeah.
And so what? Okay, so what's your take? E.T.
E.T. and I've spent enough time down there. And, I don't wear aluminum foil, but I do believe in all kinds of things. And that interdimensional as well. You need, if you're dealing with other planets or other dimensions, you need something that can be honed in on and focused in, so that you have beings that can pass through. Sort of like wormholes. These you can see through that. Oh, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And that's what they built these as guideposts. Just over the border in northern Chile, there's a museum in not Arequipa, but Arica, that they have mummies that are the same age as the Peruvian mummies, with tons of the Inca regalia around them. And it's like, okay, if they're 20 or 30,000 years old and they're mummies, and they're like your camel teeth in Oregon, how did they get there and why? I mean,
yeah, okay. So now let's go shaman a little bit here.
One of my favorite places.
Is this out of body, right? Astral travel,
sure.
Ayahuasca, another dimension,
all of the above. Once you cross over the boundary, my book that's coming out now, just a little pitch, is travel tales from unknown. I know the book. Anyway, from the unknown, and the whole, once you cross over, the shamans throughout history, throughout cultures, have used astral traveling, used mind altering substances to get their spirits to other dimensions. And once you get your spirit to other dimensions, then you start seeing things that are almost beyond our comprehension. I met a fellow in the Amazon one time, a shaman, and he told me, you'll like this, it kind of fits with your show. He said, I was asking him some of the far out things he'd done, and he said, well, there was a crash, and my apprentice and I went out to the river, and it looked like it was some kind of a disc thing. And I said, did you save it? He said, no, it was breaking up. I thought, oh yeah, well, he's telling me a good story. And then he said, but to the surface floated a body. And I said, and what happened to it? He said, we took it onto the boat, we took it to shore. I said, do you have it? Did you save it? He said, everything rots in the Amazon. We cut it in pieces and boiled it, and I ate it. And all of my senses changed. I started tasting sound and hearing feelings, and on and on and on. And I couldn't function without my apprentice for months, because everything and how I perceived it was totally different. And if it wasn't for him, I would have either died or committed suicide. I was just insane. And then slowly it wore back till I just became a better shaman. Once we break through the boundary to magic, and to other dimensions, we open up just a plethora. I like to tell people when I talk that reality is really an onion, and we're in like one layer in our material world. And if you go beyond that, there's so many layers of existence and reality that we can conceive of, sort of. And when we go there, we have to have reference points to be able to describe them to the people, so that we bring back something worth explaining. Otherwise, we're talking about intelligent sweet potatoes that ride crocodiles. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. It reminds me of Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah. He was a friend of mine.
Was he really?
Well, we were more than acquaintances.
Okay. We'll circle back to that. When I was a kid, I was in my late teens, and an older friend of mine in their early 20s, right? Somebody older and wiser, right? Okay, man, it's time for you to start reading Carlos Castaneda, right? So, I get like the first 3 books, I start reading. Anyway, a couple of things always stuck out for me in Carlos's tales. We'll go with that, his experiences.
We can do a whole show on Carlos.
flying shamans, right? Flying witches, and not in metaphor. He was watching them fly, and he tells us one story. I'm not going to, go deep, but he says he's on this cliffside mountaintop over this valley. He's with the shaman. He's with a witch. I can't remember which book it was. Anyway, so he's standing there with the two of them, and they're doing their little thing, and then she takes off, right? Flies out around the valley in front of them, and comes back and lands. And then the shaman, I forget his name. It wasn't Don Juan.
It was his other friend, Don.
Yeah, his other friend.
Dinero.
Yeah, does the same thing, right? Flies out around the canyon and comes back and lands. Now, I think that a lot of people that read stuff like that go, okay, well, he was high. this is, it's fun to read. I think that there's a huge dose of reality here about what Carlos was writing about and what the ancients in
Who
Peru
do and can do.
Right.
No, once you've broken the rules, I've seen things and even done things. Magic is weird because it's not of the material world. So expanded spiritual realities and magic aren't as predictable and aren't as easy, but they break the laws of physics and they break the laws of the material world. And once you break through, you can. I've taken a group of people that didn't quite believe and brought them to a hillside, and there was a reason that it had to rain because there was these big brawls breaking out, and I convinced them that we could sing the rain in, and from a clear sky it became cloudy and then it rained. I don't walk on water, and I couldn't do that every day, but I saw it happen. I made it happen. We can do miracles. The problem is we can't get out of our way in believing, and we're trained just the opposite. We're trained with these blinders on that we see the material world and we're captive by it. And the people I've been blessed to meet who have broken out of those blinders just create magic and miracles on a regular basis.
What started the journey for you?
It was, I mentioned it in my new book. I was the son of a funeral director, and my father wanted me to take over the funeral home. When I was 5 years old, he made me touch a dead body. And to this day, I don't know, but I felt an electric shock go up my arm to my heart. And I looked over my left shoulder, and I swear I saw something there. And to this day, when I'm not sure what I'm going to do, I look over my left shoulder, and I think death says, I could take you any moment. You better do it. That was the beginning. And then being his apprentice later on in New England, they dig up, in the wintertime, they dig up the graves with backhoes. And they rip up old graves by mistake. And there's bones all over the cemeteries in the wintertime. So I took to collecting them and putting them in my room in an aquarium. And I had an aquarium full of bones. I thought it was pretty cool. Nobody else had that. And then I started having terrible dreams. I mean, nightmares. I thought I was going mad. And I couldn't understand. There was all these voices I couldn't understand. And out of the voices in the whirlwind stood this old-fashioned dressed man. And with great concentration, I heard him say, "I'm Phineas Goodhue, and I have come to be the voice of the bones." And then he told me that I had disturbed all these beings in their settling their afterlife existence, and I needed to bury the bones so they could continue with that. And I don't know where it came from to this day, but in the lucid dream, I said, "What if I don't?" And he said, "Then they'll drive you crazy." So I said, "I'll do it if you help me learn a whole bunch of things and experience a whole bunch of things spiritually and magically." And he said, "Okay, you got a deal." And I've seen Phineas a number of times over the years, and I've sort of become a magnet for magic, mystery, and weird experiences all my life. From
okay, come on. The obvious question is, how long did it take you to go grab a shovel?
Oh, that night.
Right.
My parents went to church in the morning, and I slept in. And as soon as they left, I ran to the garage, got a spade and a burlap bag, took all the bones, and ran to the nearest back of the cemetery and dug a deep hole. And when I threw them in, I said, "Okay, I did my part of the bargain. You got to do yours."
And so did the dreams ended?
Those dreams ended that night.
Right.
The whirlwind of voices I couldn't understand that were driving me crazy.
I'm going to tell you I'm going to share something a little private. I may have mentioned this on the show before briefly, but I'm going to say this. My mom passed away about 5 years ago, and no big deal. She died old age, and she was getting up there in her 80s. And but anyway, up until I would say, up until she died, but for about 20 years or so of my adult life, I had these crazy dreams about her. She is still alive. But dreams, me and her, me trying to find her, or me trying to do this or that or this and these. When she passed away, right? I'm not kidding. This is not a joke. I have not dreamed those crazy dreams. It's weird. They just ended.
Dreams are an extension of our reality, and so much magic work can be done in dreams. And you and her obviously had work to do on the astral that you were doing while she was alive.
Right.
And when she passed over, she finished that part of it. I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's kind of natural.
I didn't enjoy the dreams, right? When they were
a lot of times you don't enjoy spiritual reality hitting you on the head.
Yeah. And but when she passed away, they stopped. And I never. I'm going to get back to Phineas, though. Was he one of the Freak Brothers? Anyway, we are the same age.
We are. I knew Last Gasp Comics and Ron Turner, who published them.
I got to tell you, Furry Freak Brothers. My dad is like 88, still a pothead, right? He's alive. I guarantee you, he's smoking weed right now. Okay,
a lot of people are more than they were in the 60s.
So, but in the 70s, he had a Volkswagen van. And I'm goofing around and poking around, and in the back above the engine bay, that door opened up like this. There's a little compartment.
I remember.
And I found a stack of Furry Freak Brother comics. I didn't know what they were, and I thought these don't look like Spider-Man, right? So I grabbed them and took them and read them. I didn't understand the pot joke, so I was too young. But the comics themselves were hilarious, and the artwork was hilarious.
I ran Magical Blend magazine in San Francisco for decades, and I got to meet Ron Turner, who ran the company that printed those, and a lot of the underground artists, and they're just crazed and wonderful people.
I think the Furry Freak Brothers. They were just the artists and the writers were just doing their own life.
Yeah. Oh, so much.
Yeah, that's all it was.
I moved to San Francisco in the 70s, and you could walk down the street and see the comic books come to life.
What was the Fat Freddy's cat?
Right.
Better than the better than the comic book. Everybody, we're talking about the Furry Freak Brothers. We'll get back we'll get back to Carlos Castaneda. But on the bottom of each page was a little mini comic, and it was called Fat Freddy's Cat. And it was like 5 frames. It was like this little thing. And okay, all right. I love the Furry Freak Brothers. But back to Phineas. Okay, so
at the end of that story, we lived across the street. My father was a funeral director. We lived across the street from an old old cemetery. And one day I was walking through the cemetery, reading the old poems on the old tombstones, and I swear, one of them said, "Phineas Goodhue, stop, my friends, as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you must be. Prepare for death and follow me." And it was, I took a picture of it and sent it to my wife because she thought I had made up the story.
I think you just made that up. Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. It's there in Methuen, Massachusetts.
So did he hold up to his end of the deal?
I think he did. I saw him 3 years ago and on the spirit dream level, and we had a conversation, and I think he's had quite an effect on my life, and kind of turning me into a magnet for all kinds of metaphysical and occult experiences.
Now, you had asked him for the secrets, right? Give me, what was the first secret?
Basically, open mind, open heart. They're as simple as that. If that everything is more than it appears, and that we get a choice to what degree we look at it and to what degree we understand it, and then we attract to ourselves what we think we deserve and what we want most. So if I want metaphysical experiences, I pull them to me. If somebody is afraid of bankruptcy, then they go through bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kind of like Central and South America, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Even Egypt as well, where that connection to consciousness and the giving. Well, you can take too as well. But you need to give. But that's what most ancient cultures were also based on, weren't they?
They really were. I was just through weirdness, I ended up managing a restaurant in Progreso, Mexico for 6 months, and my whole staff was Mayan descent, and most of them spoke Mayan, and it was such a grand experience. Hey, I had to learn some words, and they had to learn some words, but because even though they're generations removed from their pre-European ancestors, they just have that different appeal to life, different feel of interaction with people. That's just wonderful.
When I was very young, and I lived in Panama. My dad was in the military, Army band.
He lived all over.
Yeah, so Army band. He never shot a gun or anything like that. But when we were in Panama, now Mayans, especially back then, and we're talking about the mid 70s, the Mayan culture, the way that we discuss it today, totally different. Back then, Mayans that was still yet to be discovered, especially in pop culture and stuff. All that came much later. But anyway, I was in this is called Stephen Circle, and these Indians would set up these booths and sell stuff, but and they didn't look like Panamanians to me. And I had said to one of my friends, I said, where do they come from? And my friend says, I'm 14. They're Mayans. They come from the jungle. Mayans? What? Right? And it was fascinating to me.
It still is. If you spend time in Panama and Costa Rica, there's very few artifacts there. Again, I'm not a conspiracy buff, but if the Aztec and Mayan cultures and the Peruvian cultures, the Incas, actually had a crossroads there where they exchanged knowledge and goods, it wouldn't be in the Europeans' best interest to keep that in museums recorded, because it would show how advanced these cultures were and what really went on. Because
you're right about that.
Find anything there.
Yeah, you're right about that, because Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, of course, Chile, Argentina, Peru. When you really think about it, they're all very close together.
Very.
And they're all connected. And what is right in the middle? Panama.
Panama and Costa Rica are right there.
There.
And you just go up to Nicaragua, and you find amazing ruins. We're not sure even what culture, if they were Mayan or they're pre-Mayan. You go to Colombia, and once again, the same thing. But there, it's almost like it was wiped out.
Why was it so important? We're going to take a break in 5 minutes, and then we'll pick up when we come back.
Because of the European-centric view of reality. It was really important.
Wait, how did you know that was my question?
Lucky, I guess.
Because that was my question, but how did you know that was my question?
I slipped. I'm sorry.
That was insane.
Thank you.
Okay, well, give me the courtesy of just asking the question then for the audience. Why was it so important for the Europeans to suppress the Mayan and the other cultures that were there? Okay, go ahead. You can.
They wanted Egypt and Greece to be the cradle of civilization, perhaps the Tigris and Euphrates River. They didn't want it to be Asia, Africa, or Latin America. So all of that, a lot of the dating was purposely brought forward so that they could look like Europe was always ahead and advanced and brought to the world civilization.
Yeah, isn't it funny? There was a video of it's Graham Hancock and Zahi Hawass having an argument, right? And I posted the video. Graham wasn't too happy about it. I think I ended up pulling it down only because nobody likes to be seen fighting, right? Yeah. But I posted the video because of what Zahi Hawass said. Graham goes, look, he's going to be talking about Göbekli Tepe. And Zahi Hawass, the arrogance, the ego, says, I don't even know what that is. What is this Göbekli Tepe that you speak of? Why? Because it upsets their dogma of Giza and Mesopotamia.
Oh my God, to be that old, right? And to be that, again, that advanced in its building, it upsets it all.
Of course, Zahi knew everything about Göbekli Tepe.
Right.
You know, and to say this,
ego is a terrible thing.
If Göbekli Tepe was, let's say, I'll pull a round number, 1,000 years older than Giza, not much of an argument there. Okay, Zahi wouldn't give a crap, but it's 7,000 years older, and that's a big difference.
What does that say about all of our theories and beliefs?
It turns everything over.
That's right.
And why isn't what's your? And then we'll swing back to the Incas in Peru. Why is it that Göbekli Tepe isn't the most talked about thing on planet Earth? Right? It's the oldest. There's older stuff for sure.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't supposed to exist. Why isn't it the most famous thing in the world?
Because we want to go status quo, and we want the history books to be what they are and be the truth. Yeah.
And there's so many more Göbekli Tepes.
Endless.
Endless.
I mean, how many times has the world been buried in flood and disaster? How many advanced cultures existed?
Why? That's exactly where we're going to pick up when we come back.
Okay, great.
Why is it that academics don't have the open mind that you refer to? They used to. Obviously, Galileo had an open mind, right? Copernicus had an open mind. Newton had an open mind. Those guys thought outside of the box and got us to where we are today.
They didn't have books published, and they didn't have a position at the university to protect.
Yeah. Well, Galileo did, he got busted for heresy. And
it cost
it cost him a lot. But science doesn't work that way today. Now everything is inside of the box. You cannot step out. Graham Hancock,
bless him.
Bless him. I don't agree with everything.
I don't either. But God, he's put so much good information out there and made so many people think.
That's it. It's just thinking. That's one of the Von Daniken. If he brought one thing to the table, he when he first started his podcast, Michael, he sends me an email and says, I want you to be, my first guest.
Oh,
and I was like his second guest or whatever at the time. But anyway, so his question to me, I'm not making this up either. You can go watch it yourself. First question out of the box. So Jimmy, how did you get into this? Right? I go, dude, you.
What a compliment.
And it's the truth, right? And it's guys like Eric and Graham and others, John Anthony West, and
right.
That
paved the way, opened our minds.
Just don't think normally. Just go outside. You might be wrong, but at least you're exploring. That's right? Think outside of the box. And that's what Eric and so many others have brought to the table, Michael.
It's true. And the people who are ready are doing that. And I think there's a cultural revolution going on outside the media. It's really, people are waking up and people are realizing that having a house and a nice car isn't all of it. And there's a lot of people that are questioning our views of reality.
That's it's something that I think that we are taught from such a young age, from TV commercials, marketing, of course, sitcoms and dramas and things, where your dream, that your happiness comes from one more bedroom, one more garage, maybe a pool in the backyard, and eventually a 4-car garage, 5-bedroom house, tennis court, and a pool. Then you retire and you reach nirvana.
And there are some people that's what they came to do, and that's fine. But
they get there.
There's more and more people that are waking up and realizing that ain't it.
No, because they get there, they're like, man, I didn't get a 4-car garage. I got a 5-car garage. Where's my gift? Right? Where's the happiness?
That's it. I knew these two good friends who both made it very good in the world. They were very rich. And I saw them. I would see them every few years. And I saw them and they were both like, oh, whoever gets the most toys wins at the end. And then I saw them in their later years and they were like, what do you do with all this shit? How do you get rid of it? And then I saw their wives after they died saying, who do I give this to? Why did they have to get all this stuff?
Right. Yeah, I got a problem with guitars.
I can see.
Yeah.
But guitars are addictive.
You should see the rest of my house. This is just one little piece of but here's the thing. I've actually thought about this. What is my daughter going to do with all of these guitars? Now, she can retire and do whatever, but what a pain in the ass. She's going to have to back up a big truck, right? And what I'm going to have to put her through. I've actually thought about this. I need to pump some brakes.
Good. As you get another 20 years down the pike, you might want to start unloading some.
I might start doing that sooner than you think. But you're right about that. Now, I'm not saying that I don't appreciate a nice car.
I appreciate a nice car. I appreciate a nice house. I appreciate a great meal in a great restaurant.
Right.
But I don't live for those things.
I don't live for those things either. This stuff behind me comes from my soul. Right. It's who I am. It's music. It's it's a thing. It's not a material thing.
When we talk about spirituality, we talk about magic, and we talk about other dimensions, creativity goes right in there with there. It just cuts right through it, whether it's writing or music or dance or weaving or gardening. When somebody totally focuses their being and their soul into a creative outpouring, they transcend.
Yeah. There is Billy Carson wrote a book. We're way past our break, but he wrote a book. No, it's my fault. He wrote a book called "Woke Doesn't Mean Broke," right? And which is that so many people in the crystal conscious community, my friends, that's who I am, but that you can't be conscious, you can't be selfless and have money.
And I really fought with that, because my father was really material world money kind of guy. And in San Francisco, I started Magical Blend magazine in my living room, and it grew to an international publication. And I was signing $1 million checks a year through this magazine until the downturn came. And I had to really face my demons. Oh my God, am I a bad person that I'm making money? And I realized, God, I'm hiring people, I'm paying people, I'm putting out good information to the world. I'm only bad if I use this selfishly and to hurt people. And then we get out of our way. People would say, you're publishing a spiritual magazine and you're rich. And I'd say, yeah, and I'm enjoying it.
It's about who you are, right? And who you surround yourself with. Are you a good person? Are you a negative person? Do you talk smack? Are you judgmental? Are you all those things that you shouldn't be?
You asked me about Phineas Goodhill's truth. You're saying them. It's that. How do you feel when you go to sleep at night? If you feel good with yourself, that you did good, that you're doing good, then it's all okay. But if you're doing people wrong, then it's not okay.
No. One thing that I do, and I did it like, what time is it? I did it about 90 minutes ago. Okay. We've been on the air for an hour and 15 minutes. So about an hour, 30 minutes ago, I do this a few times a day. I do it before I go to bed. I do it when I get up in the morning, and I did it 90 minutes ago. I thank the universe. I literally go, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's that attitude of gratitude, as corny as that sounds, that really makes the difference. I mean, the more you say thank you, the more you get. I've lived such a blessed life, considering all kinds of variables I had no right to. But and I've had some downturns and some disappointments. But I'm thankful for all of that. It just made me who I am, and I like myself.
Yep. Let's take our break right here. Okay. Our guest tonight, Michael Peter Langevin. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back.
Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long, featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org.
Hi, everybody. Jimmy Church here. Very special announcement, and that is we are shipping Fade to Black t-shirts again. It's been almost 2 years. We did a full upgrade to the website, so you can head over to jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple to do, and it's right there. Remember, we broadcast 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. We bring you the best, the brightest, the most knowledgeable and amazing guests, the best conversations. We do that 4 nights a week. We also do 4 days a week. We broadcast the news, and we do that live too as well. It's not a one-man show. I do it with website support. I do it with producers. I do it with writers and artists. All contribute to the show. The best way to help support what we do here is with the Fade to Black t-shirt. And you can get your Fade to Black t-shirt one of 2 ways. First, go to jimmychurchradio.com, order a shirt. It's really that simple. You're going to get a tracking number, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to get autographed. The second way to get a shirt is with a Game Changer membership. Now, the Game Changer membership not only includes a free t-shirt, but you get a private email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads. You have full access to the website, and everything includes free shipping, and everything is autographed. So help support the show. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. The links are below. You can just go to jimmychurchradio.com, and it's right on the website. So there you go. I'm Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. I'm so excited that I just have one thing to say. Go Packley Tappy.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's gonna be a night to remember. You don't wanna forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I wanna see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. River Moon Wellness. That's right. It's the only coffee I drink. Drinking it right now. You know, Michael, I used to do that every night on the show, right? I would go. Now, when I drink coffee all day long, I can't stop. All right, I'm going to ask you a question for me.
and take your time on the answer because I want all the details. What's it like hanging out with a shaman in the Amazon?
It's otherworldly. I've been blessed to meet a number. One of my books is called The Secrets of the Amazon Shamans, and I started going down there in the 70s. So I got to see and meet a lot of them as the world was changing because the cultures have so eroded. But they knew things, and there's still shamans there, and there's still. I met a young one who I was very impressed with not 5 years ago. But well, the first time I did ayahuasca in the Amazon, nobody told me to fast, so I spent the night throwing up and having the runs and crying and leaking from my ears and thinking I was a bad person and remembering everything bad that had ever happened to me and everything bad I had ever done. I was rolled up like a fetus wanting to die. And then I had to go to the bathroom again. So I left the hut and I went outside and the shaman came out and he was singing a shaman song as they do, or ayahuasca shaman song. And I reached out my hand and I couldn't tell where I stopped and the jungle began. And at that point I realized for the first time fully in my life how interconnected I am and we all are to nature and to everything that exists. And once you felt that feeling, and these people live that way, they radiate that, and they know things about animals, plants, and other realities that are far beyond our imaginations.
I want to talk more about your first experience and other experiences. Here's the amazing part about ayahuasca for me. It's the knowledge of the recipe. It's it's a couple of thousand years old, and to have the knowledge, because ayahuasca doesn't work
if it's not blended.
A couple of things, right? That's right. And for it to absorb, a very specific root and a very specific plan, and this, and the brute, but that recipe is old, and so the knowledge of that is what is most impressive. Now, going to another dimension in a parallel world and the examination of yourself and
that's pretty cool too.
That's amazing, right?
Right.
But the knowledge of this, where did it come from? And I would say, I would love to hear your idea of where it came from or what you have learned. But it must have been channeled, or it came from up there. It wasn't.
It could have come from up there, but a lot of the shamans actually listen to the plants. They just like people talk to their cats and dogs, but they know, and the plants, like animals, communicate and will tell you, mix this with that, don't eat this, if you have developed the skill of communication. Along those lines, I went to a village far in the interior of Brazil one time. I don't sound very intellectual because I can't remember the name of the village or the tribe, but what I do remember was, in order for me to be accepted, I had to go through their ritual, and they had a long pipe which they blew up each other's nose, and the first time they blew it up my nose, the top of my head came off, and I fell back, and I thought, okay, good, I got that over with. And then about the third time, the top of my head came off, and little people were dancing around singing the most beautiful song I'd ever heard. And the next morning I woke up on a hammock and asked the shaman of the village what those people were. And he said, oh, they're the little people of the jungle, and they gave you your life song. Remember it. And for years later, I would be sitting at my desk working, and they would pop out and sing to me in times of confusion or exhaustion. And where did they get the recipe for this powder that gave me this experience? And why isn't that more widespread?
Did you ever finally find that out? What was in the powder?
I never did.
Wow,
So many of the things I touched on down there, and I was blessed to touch on, but when I went back or when I did research, they were gone. One other story. My sister used to work with me at Magical Blend, and she developed a tumor in her brain. But I knew what to do because I had met this shaman in the Amazon, and he told me what time of year to come back. And I set it all up so I could fly down, take a boat to his village. And he said I was 2 days early, so I had to wait. And then he climbed one of these trees that were on the western side of the mountain, and he cut off about a foot square piece of bark, and he brought it down, and he scraped out this kind of fungusy stuff that was growing inside the bark, and he mixed it with some roots and boiled it till he got this ash, and he made the ash into 2 packs. And he said, one of these is for your sister and her tumor, and the other one is for someone you'll know. And I came back, and he said, have them drink it with a glass of red wine, to heat it up in red wine. And my sister had been told by the doctor she was going to die from the tumor, and she had emphysema also. Well, the emphysema was put in remission, and the tumor too. I gave the other pack to my business partner at the time who had AIDS, and he didn't have AIDS. He had HIV positive, and he didn't heal from HIV positive, but he did live for another 35 years being HIV positive, which isn't unheard of, but I always kind of thought was enhanced by that. I saved a little bit of it and sent some to 2 doctors I knew, and they said all they could make of it was that it was burnt ash. So a couple of years later, I went back to see if I could get more, because this guy had the cure to tumors. He had died. His apprentice had cut down all the trees, scraped off all the fungus, and gone to Sao Paulo and bought himself a house with the profits. It was gone.
Wow. Wow.
And that's symbolic of so much that is the old ways of falling off.
Yeah. And for yourself personally, Graham, going back to Hancock,
right?
I introduced him one night, and I've hung out with him enough, but I introduced him, and I kind of gave the wrong introduction. I started off, and Graham steps out on the stage, and he goes, "No, Jimmy, tonight we're going to talk about ayahuasca." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Okay, everybody, Graham Hancock." I handed him the mic. Introduction was over, and I went and sat down. But he, at that time, this was
his book on ayahuasca is very good.
Yeah. Yes. He had said then that he had done about 70 or 75 ceremonies. I don't know what the number is today. That seems like a lot.
Yeah.
How many ceremonies have you done?
I don't count. I'm going to say it's probably in the 30s.
30s?
Yeah. I've done a number of substances down there: San Pedro cactus, Jimson weed, a number of things. But it's not. I don't see it as a competition. I use it when I feel a need to break through something.
Right. But that's again. You keep reading my mind. It's my job as the host to ask the question.
I don't mean to.
You need to answer my question, even though you know the question in advance. Okay, obviously, it's very impressive. By the way, what is it that as the stages, man, now the question is just going to be, but what is it that are you specifically going into each ceremony with something in mind that you want to work on, which is the question that you just answered, but that was the question. Do you go into it knowing
usually, and sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I get that answer, and sometimes I was out in left field and something else came in that was more important and more needed by me.
Give me an example. That's great. Right. That's all. Give me an example of that. It's this. When I read, I have not done ayahuasca. I have not done DMT. I have not. I will. I'll get around to it eventually.
It's not a need.
What's that?
It's not a need.
No, I want to. I want to go through the ceremony with a shaman.
That's the way to do it,
and do it properly in the right environment. I want to be on the edge of a mountain. I want to tobacco. I want to do the whole thing, right? Okay, but that being said, I haven't done it. But I've done enough research, and I've had, so many of my friends, great intellectuals, talk to me about their experiences, and it's the same experience, not word for word, but it's exactly the same. What they do and what the questions and the now, that's all different. But the experience itself is the same, which says to me that this is a connection to another dimension, a parallel world that exists out there. And I think that this is proof of access to that world. Wouldn't science benefit from investigating what is actually going on? And is this...
You're ahead of your time. The world will catch up with us, but you're ahead of your time. There's a lot of old to break down before we get to science embracing our history, embracing the things we're talking about tonight, and that's okay. It has to go that way.
Well, for physicists, yeah, but this is where I disagree with you.
Okay.
So
we had to find some place.
Yeah. So let's get a little interesting here. Too many physicists, too many scientists out there are too pragmatic, non-spiritual, and live a chemically based life. That everything is chemistry. That consciousness is not worth discussing. It's just a product of atoms, and it's just a physical thing. And something like ayahuasca and a physicist that is closed down spiritually, right? Atheist, whatever they, and they see this other world, it would change them, and they would understand that there is something else going on, and maybe they could apply some science to this to access these other realities. I think we should.
I used to think I came to open all people's minds and jettison them into a higher state of being, and I've come to realize that people come to it when they're ready. And we each all have our own path. And a lot of people came to learn things that I'm not going to learn this time, and I'm not going to experience it. I'm not supposed to. And my expanded reality is not for everyone.
I think Richard Dawkins and Neil deGrasse Tyson can get some benefit from DMT. Could you imagine how they would change their outlook on the world and the universe?
Have you ever tried ketamine?
No, but I read about it in the Furry Freak Brothers.
When you do ketamine with a group of people, you all astral travel together most of the time.
Right.
What a spiritual connection that is. Yeah, it's a horse tranquilizer, but scientists and historians and people with closed minds what would that do to them?
Yeah, well, I've often said, Michael, the most spiritual person in the world is Richard Dawkins when the plane is going down.
you got to be under pressure to come up with your full beliefs.
Yeah, that's right. And but with science today trying their best, and Hollywood is doing this too. The multiverse, wormholes, extra dimensions, parallel worlds, entanglement. This is what science is trying to teach the world. But this is what the shamans of the Amazon have been talking about for 1,000 years.
Yep. And maybe it had to shift from there to Hollywood to the scientists for it to go worldwide. I've had visions of Inca gods and goddesses and think I've spoken to them, and they said that in very strange ways the lost knowledge is going to come through to the masses of the world, that the secrets weren't lost, they just went underground to be transformed.
Is there a ceremony that you can do that it doesn't involve any kind of ayahuasca is a general.
No, you don't need hallucinogenics. You really there's quite a few ceremonies that basically will lead you drumming, dance, or meditation, or singing can lead, especially a group is more powerful, but you can do it individually, can lead people to an altered state where you can go out of body, where you can communicate with entities on the astral plane.
Give me an example.
Sure. I often go. I used to go to Death Valley when I lived in California. Now I go out in the bayou, and I find an isolated place, and I start a fire, and I sit by the fire, and I sing to myself, and I invoke the entity which I want to communicate with, whether it's a Incan god or a voodoo goddess, and I focus my total being on that, and then I ask a question that's very magical. What if they were communicating with me? What might they say? And strangely enough, 9 times out of 10, I start hearing answers that aren't in my answer bank and aren't things I know. And I start feeling like I'm actually communicating with some extended being from an alternative or unknown reality.
Are the answers, this is amazing to me, are the answers forcing you to ask questions, right?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't think I have to be sure. I get insights and knowledge that steer me or help me on what I'm working on or going through. And for me, that's really the most important thing.
Now, why? What is if there isn't evidence of another existence, of another plane of existence, of something else out there, I don't know what it would be if it's not the descriptions of people that go through an ayahuasca ceremony. Meeting mother, right? The different descriptions of animals and entities that they are communicating with, which includes the plants and everything else that is in nature, but it is described in a different way that we don't relate to in this.
What hallucinogenics do and ceremony is give us reference points into the other dimensions, into unknown realities. And then we can go back easier without their assistance, or just carry them in our awareness. The hallucinogenics are a great tool. They're not a necessary tool, but they're a great tool to establish those reference points and to see things in an expanded view that expands our whole way of being.
Right. Yeah, but and here's where, for me, it gets really, really interesting. That extraterrestrials, right, understand this, and we don't have the right words for it. We say interdimensional, and I don't even think that
our words are so inadequate.
And yes, exactly, man. I want to hang out with you, Michael.
Thank
you. And I.
Jimmy,
you and I need to hang out for real. But isn't that exactly it?
It is. And as you say, the extraterrestrials move in these expanded realities, in the fourth dimension, in the fifth dimension, and therefore they can do things, see things, know things that seem beyond our possible to us, and they are similar to the hallucinogenics in that there are other realities, there are doorways to other realities. They know how to move through doorways we don't go to on a regular basis.
Well, is that why when we read an ancient Egyptian papyrus, or what's left of the Mayan culture, there's very little of it left. The Spanish made sure that
let's burn it all.
Yeah, yes, but it sounds like Mesopotamia, the Sumerian tablets, and so forth, where it sounds like science fiction. It does, and it's like, where is this coming from? Well, they had an understanding of these dimensions and these parallel worlds, and they understood it, and it was a part of their culture. And today they just made it up.
We've narrowed down. You and I have experienced the dumbing down of society, and that's been going on for centuries. We've narrowed down, and people are programmed not to question, not to think, not to go out of what's safe and what's predictable. And you don't get the golden ring if you don't reach over the side of the carousel to a dangerous point.
I think that was the name of that Carlos Castaneda book I was thinking of. Was it called The Golden Ring?
Yeah, I think it was something close to that.
Yeah, something close to. So that is kind of interesting. How did you meet Carlos?
I like you read him when I was young, and then when I was doing Magical Blend, we had this way of getting famous names in. We would all take time and write letters, because it was before email, to our favorite authors, movie stars, writers, and we'd send out 100, and maybe we'd get 2 famous people who would come back and say yes. I, of course, wrote a couple to Carlos Castaneda, and one day I was working in the office, and one of my staff came and said, "Boss, there's someone who says he's Carlos Castaneda on the phone, and he wants to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, okay, yeah." So I went, and damn if it wasn't. And he said, what I do, I have this thing I do every year. I reach into one of my mailbags, and I pull out 3 letters, and I try to do whatever the letters say. And this time I got one from Brazil, from a magazine that wanted to interview me, and a woman from Mexico who wanted to interview me, and your magazine. So I'm going to let the woman from Mexico interview me, and we're going to have it translated into Portuguese and English. Are you okay with that? And I said, "Oh yeah." and we were still early on in a small magazine, and we got the interview. We broke it into half. It skyrocketed sales, and he called back afterwards and said, I like the way you handled that. I really appreciate it. And we kind of kept in touch. And then when he came out with his whole tensegrity thing, he gifted me with a free weekend to experience it, and I got to hang out with him and his group. And then we were running articles from people who said all kinds of things about him, and he called up and told us we had to stop. His lawyer called up and threatened to sue us, and we said we wouldn't. And then his clan called up and said they were going to turn me into a toad. And I had to really work to get a lot of people to magically protect me and my staff and my kids. And then eventually he tried to buy us off by offering us an exclusive interview if he had control of everything in that issue, and I couldn't do that. So he went to our competitor at the time. So we weren't friends towards the end, but the irony is that the London Times got in touch with me and asked me to write his obituary when he died. So I went from reading Carlos Castaneda in my living room and finding my power spot to writing his obituary for the London Times.
Did he have a grasp on his rock stardomness?
No.
Did he understand his influence?
He was scared by it. I mean, this is my take. Other people will tell you other things. I think he was scared and overwhelmed by it. And the circle of people who have the women who have disappeared, mostly women who have disappeared since he died, convinced him to do this tensegrity thing. And I was disappointed. I was really excited to go, and it was great to meet him and the other magic workers, but it was very Hollywood. And I think he was just doing it because he was aging and they told him to do it. And it was good to have the money sewed away. And I mean, it turned out when after he died, all of his followers, close followers, disappeared. The rumors had it. I know some that committed suicide or died unexpectedly, and his lawyer now runs the company that he established.
Yeah. His books
are still selling great.
Yeah, well, the especially the first three.
Yeah.
And when you think about, when they were written, we're talking about the early 70s, right?
He was a godfather of the new age.
It was transformative for me. And
many of us.
Now, as I grew older, I went back and reread some of his early work. And there was a part of me that said, I think this is fiction, right? I'm not because the first, because I read those books, I'd finish, I'd flip it over and I'd start it over, right? And I took them as verbatim. And they were transformative, but it was weird. Like 20 years later, I went back and read them, and they didn't have the same effect on me. And
we interviewed a lot Marilyn Tenashende, who wrote a couple of books. She claimed to be his ex-lover, who also studied with Don Juan, and she basically said that he and who she called John Blackcrow was her name for Don Juan. Fell out after the third book, and that most of what he wrote after that he had made up. I don't know reality. I know I still got things out of those other books. I know he was a good storyteller. So Did it matter? I don't think it did. He changed society. He changed a lot of our lives.
He did. He changed an entire generation. I mean, there's no question about his influence.
He was born in Cajamarca, Peru. And if you go to Cajamarca, which I've done a number of times, in the marketplace, they sell Jimson weed, they sell San Pedro cactus, they sell peyote, and there's a number of people in the town, and I've actually interviewed a couple, none of them will claim him, but who have the last name Castaneda.
When Marilyn came out with that, and a few other people backed her up, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
That he was Don Juan. I was so upset, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not.
A lot of people hated Marilyn. I had Marilyn.
Man, I was so
we were being threatened by Castaneda's corporation. So I had Marilyn come to my farm in Northern California and spend a day with my staff and a number of reporters we were working with. And it was one of the most amazing days you can imagine. And everybody there, a lot of people didn't know anything about her, had never read Castaneda. They all had amazing experiences. But the really strange thing was the next day when we compared notes, none of us had the same experiences. And when I asked Marilyn, well, what's that about? She said, well, that's real magic. You all needed something different, so I gave it to you.
What city in Northern California?
Chico.
Oh, Chico. Okay.
It was close. I could run the business and have good labor from the university.
Oh, what do you make of this is where I'm just gonna speak directly. And I don't want to piss my audience off. Just listen to my words carefully. What do you make of a bunch of frat dudes, 20 years old, 21, all hopping on a plane going to Ecuador? Woohoo! We're going to go do ayahuasca, right? And talking about it like it's a recreational weekend and they're going to go have some fun.
I think it's great.
Without respecting what you know what I mean.
You can't do ayahuasca without respecting it after you've done it. Ayahuasca is a goddess unto herself, and I think, and it's sort of like Machu Picchu. The last time I went to Machu Picchu, when I first went there, it was pristine back in the 70s, and now it's Disneyland for adults. And I was really broken, and I heard this message, and it said, no, you don't understand. All of these people from all over the world come here, and they take back some of the magic that they wouldn't get if they didn't come here. And ayahuasca is the same way. Any way people get a piece of expanded reality, a piece of the magic, a piece of seeing more, I think it's good. Would it be better if they went down with respect and did a real quality ritual? Of course. But we take what we can get, eh?
Well, they probably come back changed.
They do.
Yes.
I can all be guaranteed.
What's that walk like, the hike up to Machu Picchu?
When I first was blessed to go, it was pristine again. It was just glorious. It was every turn you took. The Incas saw architecture as an art form, so they rebuilt the whole Holy Valley to reflect the Milky Way, and the end of the Sacred Valley is the Inca Trail, and every turn you take, you see another vista and another set of mountaintops, and it's more and more mind expanding and soul expanding. And when you finally get up to the top, you pass through the gate of the Dragon's Gate, and you look down at Machu Picchu, and it's an epiphany. It's a life-changing experience. Now you have to go with guides. They don't pick up enough of the trash. Modern day has set in, but it's still a beautiful experience. And they have other trails that they've worked to other ruins that I have not been on that I hear are very good also. But
how long is the hike itself?
Well, it depends on who you go with tour guides now, but basically they break it up into 4 days, usually.
What'd you just say?
break it up into.
It's a 4-day hike up
Yes,
to
you
Machu
get off at Ollantaytambo, and
Right.
and you hike and you camp along the way. They generally now they bring pack animals to carry your stuff.
4 days it's going to take me to hike up to Machu Picchu?
It doesn't have to, but yeah. I mean, you can do it in 3. You're in the Andes Mountains, unless you're chewing an awful lot of coca leaves.
I thought it was 35 minutes.
Not unless you got a shortcut off the train. It ain't 35 minutes.
Can I get a helicopter?
You can take the train right into Aguas Caliente at the bottom and take the bus up. You don't have to hike the trail.
Okay, I don't know. I'm going with Brian Forrester.
You'll probably go up the Inca Trail.
Do you know Brian?
I don't.
Okay. He lives down there, and I'm hosting this tour with him.
Lovely.
And well, what was so he gave me the wish list, right? Okay, so what do you want to do? And we'll squeeze it all in. And I knew I bit off more than I could chew. Dude, we got to do Nazca, we got to do PMO, we got to go to Sim, we got to do Cusco, we got to do.
You got 3 weeks. That's more than a lot of people get. A lot of people go for a week or 2 weeks. I mean,
right.
I've lived down there for 6 months at a time repeatedly, and there's still so many things I haven't seen and want to see, and things I go back to every time.
The idea behind Machu Picchu, and obviously its location and the construction of that, and getting it's beautifully done architecturally. It's incredible. But those stones and the stonework had to make it up that hill, right? And there's something about that, and we didn't. It's as recent of a discovery as King Tut's tomb.
Right. It was what was his name? Hiram Bingham.
Yeah, Hiram Bingham.
Yeah.
And when you look at the original pictures of him up there, and discovering it, it's unreal, isn't it? That it was.
Oh, it's unreal. And I have not met. I mean, like I say, 1 million people go a year now, but I have met very few people who did not have a feeling in their spine or a transformative energy that was there. And so many people have told me really extreme experiences that they had there, just because it changed my life the first time I went. That's where I had my first visions of the Inca gods and goddesses.
Right.
And it really, I think it was really built as a holy city, and the fact that it was never conquered by the Spanish was
that's the other part. I think that pop culture is this is where we don't teach enough in school, right? And when it comes to Machu Picchu, there is a misconception that the Spanish invaded and conquered, and like they did every place else, right? But Machu Picchu was abandoned.
That's right.
Way before the Spanish got there.
And Veracambia, as I'm not saying it right, but is beyond Machu Picchu in the jungle on the other side of the mountains, and that's where the last Inca held out.
Right.
And it took them forever to get to him.
Yeah. What a great show tonight.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to come to the islands. I've just got to come and hang out.
Yeah,
with
you do. Oh, I'm in love with this city. I've always liked it when I visited, but living here, there's so much creativity and there's so much magic. I'm working on my next book, I think, and I think I'm going to call it Behind the Scenes in New Orleans, because there's so many voodoo practitioners and witches and magic workers of all kinds here, right in the city.
So I'm gonna share a little story about New Orleans that you're gonna laugh about, but it's true. I'm not gonna get into the details. I'm on tour with a band. We pull in tour bus. We check into the hotel. me and a couple of the guys split, and we're gonna go check out the city, right? I have no idea where we were staying. This was late 80s. We head down, I guess, to Bourbon Street or whatever.
Where everybody goes.
Our show that we were playing was 2 nights later. So we had that night, the next night off, and then the next night we're playing. And we had sound check at 2:00 on this third day, right? Okay. This is day 1. We split. I made it to sound check at 2:00, 2.5 days later. I do not remember anything.
Cusco and
remember.
Machu Picchu are on ley lines, where the ley lines cross.
Yeah.
So is New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't remember a thing.
When the first Mardi Gras I came to, I had almost a similar experience. I was sitting on the curb, sharing drinks with some guys. I woke up the next morning in a tomb in a cemetery with my clothes ripped, but my wallet intact.
It sounds like my story.
Really?
I remember walking into sound check with a couple of band members, right? And we walk, sound checks at 2, and everybody's like, dude, we hadn't slept in like 3 days. And I don't remember. And they just thought we were just rolling into sound check. I don't even know how we got there. I don't remember a thing. New Orleans,
no, I really believe New Orleans is on the ley lines, and it explains a lot of stuff here, because I knew it was magical, but since I've been here, it's magical. I worked with the 4th grade for a little while, just doing some volunteer work. Half the kids in the 4th grade, grandmothers were teaching them voodoo.
I'll privately, I'll share a couple of things, but yeah, it was like the strangest thing. I don't remember any. I don't remember any of it.
Magic is.
Yeah, man, that's New Orleans. Thank you so much, Michael. What a great night.
Thank you. I enjoyed you amazingly, Jimmy.
And I look forward to the next time you're on the show with us.
My new book coming out in 2 weeks is, I can say it, Tales of Travel in Unknown Realities.
Yes, I put up the links in the chat, and so did our moderators. We've got the links right there.
People can email me at michaelpeterlangevin.com, and I can hook them up with a book or give them any information.
And the links for everything for Michael are below over on our website and throughout social media. Michael, go enjoy New Orleans, and thank you so much, my friend. What a great night.
Talk to you soon.
Perfect show tonight. Perfect show. You can tell I had fun. That was amazing. And all of Michael's links are below, and we got up the Amazon links right there in the chat for everybody. Thank you so much, Michael. Behave and be well. And what are we doing tomorrow night on the show? Oh, tomorrow night we have Angela T. Smith tomorrow night on the show. And we've got a lot to talk about with Angela Smith tomorrow night, including remote viewing and working for Robert Bigelow. All of that is tomorrow night right here on Fade to Black. Don't forget your Fade to Black t-shirts. The links are below. It's all simple to do. All right? All right. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palmer, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmasters, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. And this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Until tomorrow night with Angela T. Smith, I'm Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.